All right, here we go. We are going to be talking about sunlight and light. Sunlight and light, but I'm just waiting for some things to happen on the technology side and it's working. So I get questions about sunlight, sun gazing, and how to interact with it. And just know that it's communication and it's one that you as a human will get better with experience because that's how we gain ability with everything in life. So when it comes to sun gazing, just realizing that a lot of the programming that we're taught is opposite of what is best for us because those who are in power, they have an agenda and they have a right to an agenda. And if their agenda is to rule and control a population, then there's going to be things that are going to depower the population that they are ruling because it allows them to have more power over them, which makes it easier to rule. So there's things that are input into our society and not explained fully. So I'm not saying that the sun is completely safe and free of danger. However, the simple language of don't look at the sun, it's simple. And for the most part, it keeps people safe. Right? Don't look at the sun. It's going to prevent people from looking at the sun all day long. And it's not the whole story. So I'm not here to tell people to look at the sun in the middle of the daytime. However, if you think about if there was no buildings, no walls, no man made structures around, then the sun would be shining on us all the time except for when we are in shade. Just want to read this question. Hey, brother, I have a question for you. I'm recovering heroin and fentanyl addict. I have about 2 weeks off fentanyl and still don't sleep or eat well. What can I go to energetically detox myself fast? I'll come back to that, even though I really want to go on it right now. Back to the sun. If there were no buildings, we would be sun gazing every morning and every evening just by the fact that we're outside and able to move around in society. The sun is basically taking an entire direction. So we wouldn't not ever face that direction. If we need to walk, look, speak to somebody in that direction, the sun would be shining directly in our eyes. So the practice of sun gazing is just about making up for all of the lost sunlight that has not come into our irises. Our irises are filled with melanin, which is the darkest substance in our body is in our pupils. Why is that? Because our pupils are there to collect light. That's what allows us to see. Light is information. There's two cords coming off of our eye. One goes to our occipital lobe, which is our visual processing center, and the other one goes deep into our brain and eventually gets to our pineal gland. And then our pineal gland produces melatonin when we're in deep sleep, also known as a third eye. So that's what you're seeing. When the pineal gland's active, you're dreaming. And all of that light from the sun is being translated into melatonin. Melatonin goes through our body when we're sleeping and it recalibrates all of our cells that have been used during the day. It recalibrates our cells back to harmony. That's why we sleep. It is not just the act of sleeping that allows us to feel rested the next day and ready to live. It is the fact that everything has been recalibrated to the light from the sun. If we're just basking in artificial light all day long, all of that recalibration, all of that information going to our pineal gland is going to be based on the indoor lights. The indoor lights are made for seeing. That's their primary job. Even if you would like to grow a plant indoor, they make special lights that are called grow lights that shine full spectrum light onto the plants and allow them to grow in a more healthy way. However, we do not use these lights for us humans. we are also growing. Do you really think you are God? I mean, where does that question come from? Uh, do I really think we are God? That do I think God is us? I mean, one has to imagine and consider all possibilities and experiment with those notions in order to get that question, which I do often. What are indoor lights made of? Well, I mean, they used to be incandescent, which is essentially like a little fire and using electricity, but now they're LEDs. This is what I want everybody to do. When I'm done recording, videotape the lights in your house. Actually, slow motion videotape the lights in your house. Just turn on the slow motion camera and videotape the lights in your house. You're going to notice that they're blinking. It's like on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. That's very stressful for our body to deal with. And then watch the slow motion video if you're not getting that part. And you're going to see that the LED lights blink very, very fast. It's like 50 times or 100 times a second. I don't know the exact number, but it's something like that. It's not enough for us to process consciously. However, our whole body is processing it. Our body's like, wait, there's light. Now there's not light. What? And it's very stressful. That's why people get sick from working indoors underneath LEDs because of the stress that the light puts on you. And it's not just the stress, it's also the fact the light that it's shining out isn't full spectrum, which is leaving a bunch of holes and gaps in your system. So, processes like going outside or practices like sun gazing allows us to fill in the gaps to bring in more fullness, a full spectrum self in our thoughts, in our emotions, in our physical body, and even in our connection to all things. Back to the question about detoxing. There's plenty of ways to detox. However, if you're coming off an addictive substance, it's vital. It is vital to back to fulfilling. It's vital to fill yourself up, expand yourself with as much replacement for whatever you are quitting. To simply take something out of your life is going to leave a void, and you're going to now be attracted to what was taken away. So, in order to prevent you longing for the substance, then fill in the hole with something else. Okay. So, if you take something out, you have to fill in what that void is. So, find something fun, find something fulfilling, become obsessed with it, become consumed with it, yet consume with it. Yes, you may get addicted to something else like exercise or dieting or dating. And then you can then re-go through the process of coming out of that matrix and filling it with something else. And then you practice to be balanced. But I think it's completely okay to go from one addiction to another as long as you know that that's what you're doing. And you're going from being addicted to something that's bad for you to something that's slightly less bad for you to something that might be good for you to, oh, wait, I'm addicted to all of these things. Then you can start working on the addiction once you have made yourself whole and you're not destroying your insides and your emotions and your thoughts. Once you can be addicted to something like exercise or food or even sex or watching movies, then it's a little bit easier to manage and unwrestle yourself from the addiction. And this is a process. This isn't a go to a 2 week seminar and you're free. I mean, that's the dream. But people that are attached to that as an idea of being healed often will get very frustrated when they're not, or when they start going back into their programs. It may take years for some of these. And I can keep on talking about how to, help that out. getting your brain's wave frequencies to theta with things like meditation or sound baths allows for the reprogramming to happen more functionally. Someone says in his root chakra, not sure who you are talking about. Sunglasses and sunscreens are scams. They are. We have clothes, we have shade. A sunglass is blocking out sunlight. And then your body is thinking that it's shade out. And so everything that we do that's technology based is making things a little bit harder on our body to use the natural means that it's used to dealing with it. So if you're using sunscreen, what are you doing? You're allowing yourself to artificially stay out in the sun longer. What? If you don't use sunscreen, that means that you actually have a safety mechanism built into our bodies called sun burning, which is good for us. It's a trigger to tell us, I spent too much time out in the sun. Do not do that again tomorrow. Because over time, this is going to damage and ruin my body. You put on sunglasses, sunscreen, that whole mechanism, that whole cycle is taken off the table. And now we're just supposed to trust that whatever the current technology of 2023 or 20 years ago or 20 years before that, we're just supposed to trust that now humans have evolved to outsmart everything that was innate within our body. And this particular sunscreen that was just developed 2 years ago is somehow the answer where we don't have to pay attention to the fact that we're staying out in the sun too long. The answer to not burning your skin, not ruining your skin, the answer to sun cancer is to pay attention. Sunscreens make it so you don't pay attention. That's why if you use sunscreen, the countries, for instance, that have the highest usage of sunscreen also have the highest amounts of skin cancer. So this is not an argument to say the sun doesn't cause skin cancer. This is an argument to say stop using sunscreen and start paying attention to the sun because sunscreen allows you to ignore it. And then you deal with the repercussions. Okay. Yes, self-control is the fittest of the fittest. Same as big pharma, all scams, especially things that I can't say right now. Drumming, dancing, swimming, snorkeling, volunteering, those are all theta states. How do I sun gaze is a question. I'm not going to get into it that much right now, but essentially, when the sun is not a whole circle, I'm just going to be very careful. When it's not a whole circle, when it's coming up over the horizon, watch it. Watch it. Watch it go down below the horizon. There's not going to be any pain, any damage to you by watching the sunrise or sunset. It's something that animals, this is pre-humanity. Okay? This is like before humans existed, the animals on this planet were doing this. Doesn't matter how humans got here. Whether it's evolution or extraterrestrials seeding the planet or panspermia where it happened naturally, pre-human sun gazing is a thing. Even now, today, this evening, go outside during sunset. You will see birds flying around. They're getting sunlight in their eyes. So do that. Watch it. What sun gazing teaches us, what watching the sunset teaches us, is to trust and have faith. If your life isn't all scattered and you actually have an ability to tune in when the sun is setting, you will feel a sense that something is leaving you. All of the cells in your body are going through this state of longing for this light which is disappearing. And watching the sunset over and over and over again allows you to practice having faith in what you cannot see, which is the fact that the sun will rise tomorrow. And this practice can percolate into the rest of your life. And it can be a phenomenon that allows you to have faith in yourself when maybe you don't trust yourself right now, allows you to have trust in events. Allows you to have trust in your ability to be effective no matter what. The sun will rise. All right, I'm still on questions about sunscreen, which is a long time ago. All right. Coconut oil has natural SPF. Yes. When I fast, the sun feels differently. It feels warmer. I woke up with Caro this morning, my wife, and she was saying that as soon as she opened her eyes, it's been raining for the last 3 days, cloudy, raining for the last 3 days. As soon as she opened her eyes this morning, it wasn't raining and the sun was out. And she said she instantaneously got energized and happy. And that is that's the reverse of the sunset is the sunrise. And the sunrise sets things in motion in our body that allows us to be up for the day. So the epinephrine is adrenaline, and then there's norepinephrine, which is adrenaline's cousin. Norepinephrine is weaker, but it is what allows us to be awake. And that gets produced when the morning light comes into our eyes. As the sun goes below the horizon and darkness starts to set in, the body starts to translate that norepinephrine into melatonin. And this is the cycle. Then the body manufactures norepinephrine out of the remnants of melatonin. Once the sun goes down and then you're just staring at a phone and playing video games and watching movies and underneath the lights in your house, that process happens less. And then we go to bed with too much norepinephrine. And so even though we're tired, we can't go to sleep because there's not enough transfer to melatonin. And then we wake up the next morning after not sleeping, and now we've got an abundance of norepinephrine. Am I saying this right? No. We've got very I'm gonna back up right now. I need to button up my knowledge on that. But there's an imbalance between those two. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. That's why those of us who get into the cycle of not sleeping, you're like, why can I not sleep? I'm so tired. It's because the hormones that allow you to sleep are out of balance. And an easy way out of that is get off your devices. And there's other ways too. Um, there's things that you can take to allow your body to produce more melatonin. See the one of the real highlights on my page for that. Same thing with barefoot. My injuries went away when I started to run barefoot in the forest, had to pay attention to the environment and change the way my feet hit the ground. Yes. Here's something interesting that I just learned. When seat belts were developed, car accidents went up. More people died as a result of seat belts because more people got into accidents. Why? Because less people were paying attention because they had the illusion of safety from the seatbelt. Why do you think the eyesight have the darkest parts of the body? Black is what draws in light. It's because it's trying to take in all of the light spectrum and not let any of it back out. So we perceive it as black. Black is a color that we know. However, the actual function, there's a technology in color. The function of black is to absorb all light and to not bounce anything back out. That's why we see darkness, we see void. Something that is this color, whatever this is, teal, this is absorbing all of the light that's not this color, and it's bouncing back the light spectrum that is this color. and now we see this color. So the things that we see that are physical objects are actually the opposite nature. So that let me pick an easier color to say, blue. So this is actually taking in everything in the light that is not blue and it's bouncing out blue. So whatever the opposite of blue is, this is actually that color. Its essence is that color. A screen works the opposite because it's actually emanating light. This is not emanating light. This is a physical object. A screen is emanating light. So if we wanted to make this color on a screen, we would actually have to have the light source, the screen, emanate this color. And it actually, the ways that colors are mixed on a screen versus a physical object are different because of that. Graphic designers know this. It's RGB versus CYMK. If you're designing a physical flyer for people to hand out, you mix the colors differently to get this color. It would be mixed differently than how you would mix the colors differently on a lighted screen, which is very interesting. Birds go crazy before sunset. Yes, they do. How do you feel about artificial full spectrum light for SAD in the winter? I don't have a feeling about that. I'm not sure. However, that there's people that have developed companies. They're not really full artificial lights, but like red light is an example of getting some of the light spectrum in you, or infrared light, red light mixed with infrared light that allows people to feel better. And there is a lot of science that I haven't looked into that I've heard about that proves that red light is good for a lot of ailments, and it's relatively cheap and something that you can do. So our eyes absorb light, particularly the pupil absorbs light and transmits to your brain. So you can see just like a black hole absorbing all light. Yes. And what's around our eye that sees, the seeing part of our eye? It's white because the whites of our eyes allows all of the light to go into the center of our eyes. Why do optometrists say to wear sunglasses? Not all of them, not the ones that are paying attention. Guys, just because someone's a doctor doesn't necessarily mean they know everything. It means that they followed a system and were taught certain things. So that's what they say. But they're studying one thing. There's a whole other spectrum of things that they're not looking at. They're not looking at diet and how diet can affect how your eyes look at the sun. They're not looking at evolution, maybe to a degree, and I'm not saying evolution is everything either, but specialists are that. They're specialists. And when you're a specialist, you're very narrowly focused. And again, I'm not saying everybody, saying just in general. Yes, this is a generalization. There are optometrists, there are not optometrists, what's the other word? Ophthalmologists, eye doctors who love the sunlight. There's books written by these people too. They're just not the ones that are taught in schools, which are made to feed the system. You know, the fact that the pharmaceutical companies, the oil companies started the pharmaceutical companies bought all of the schools and shut down all the holistic schools. This is history. Doctors of one thing are not taught about the history of the school that they're learning the stuff from. So they don't see that Rockefeller, you know, designed all of this to serve the pharmaceutical companies. So it doesn't prompt them to ask a question of like, is this totally correct? It's definitely you can make anything correct on paper. You can show that anything's correct on paper. Is there more to it? Is it deeper than the science, than the studies? Is there alternative perspectives that also can be proven to be true, but yet contradict what I'm looking at. And what does that mean? What does it mean? Hey, yo, I didn't say that people shouldn't be wearing seatbelts. This is where the listening. Geez, I'm just on seatbelts in the comments right now. By the way, if you hear my mouse clicking, it's because I'm using a mouse from the freaking 1990s because of it has a roller ball instead of a LED thing underneath that is bouncing off the table and then burning my hands because my hands were burning. All right, I'm gonna skip a lot of the questions. By the way, I didn't say not to wear seatbelts. I just use seatbelts as an example of people stop paying attention. So when we have these safety devices, it allows people to not pay attention. And that in the long term can still lead to damage, just like cushions on the bottom of our shoes. We thought, putting air pockets on our shoes was a good thing till we start looking at people running and heel striking. People don't heel strike if they're barefoot. If you guys So when I used to own gyms, I I did 6 classes. You had to go to 6 classes and I gave a free week. So people could come to a free week and they would get 3 of these training classes for free. And if they signed up, they had to complete 3 more before coming to our advanced classes, our CrossFit classes. And so I would have 6 hours in front of every member of my gym. And one of those hours was dedicated to running. And I asked thousands of people because I don't know, like 8,000 people were came through the walls of my gym. And so I asked thousands of people, who here has ran before? Right? So everyone raises their hand. And I say, who here has ran a marathon? And 2 to 3 people keep their hands up, out of a group of 10 to 20 people. And then I would say, who here was taught how to run? And I would say 1 out of 100 people that had their hand raised as a marathon has ran a marathon, 1 out of 100, so like 1 a year, would keep their hand raised. People are all running and nobody's taught how to run and everybody's running in shoes. And if you take video of people running, they're all heel striking. They're all hitting their heel on the ground because that's where the padding's put on our shoes. And even on top of that, the padding gets in the way of our feet interacting normally with the ground. So our foot's like this, right? There's the heel bone and then there's an arch and then there's the the balls of your feet, jeez, the balls of your feet right here, which also creates another arch going the other direction. And then there's your toes. And it works sort of like the trusses on a building where it's very strong because it's got this arch right here. If you're just pounding the heel, landing on the heel because that's where the padding is, what ends up happening is the structure of the building is not strong because you're not using this part. You're not using the arch to support your body. The full weight of your body, and I would have a whiteboard to explain this, full weight of your body comes down and it's resting on this arch. It's not necessarily resting on the heel. The heel goes back. So we're actually made to land midfoot or even towards the forefoot. This heel, if you land on that, there's no shock absorption. So the shock goes straight up the bones in our leg, into our knees, into our hips, into our neck. It can even cause headaches, right? So what we're doing down here can cause problems upstream. However, if you're also not ever landing here when you're walking is okay, but when you're running, if you're not ever landing here, this arch gets very, very weak. And so if you start to run barefoot or buy like Vibrams or barefoot shoes after a lifetime of not using this, now you just run too long. Like let's say you've never ran 10 miles before and you decide to go run 10 miles. This arch is going to start flattening. It happened to me. I have flat feet because my feet were in hockey skates my entire life. And just like shoes, hockey skates make your feet interact differently than how they're designed. Hockey skates are a boot and it is very tight. And so I don't use my feet in skates like they're designed to be with, all of the bones and muscles and ligaments and fascia all in there interacting. So then when I get outside and I start playing around with my friends, I sprain my ankles and then my feet start to degrade and then I end up with flat feet, which can be retrained. You have to just go in and move all of those individual bones in the feet. Sorry to bug you, bro. Can you answer my question about recovering? Yeah, I did answer it. I did answer it. If you identify as an addict, be addicted to something else. And then eventually you won't identify as an addict. And it sounds super simple. And I said it will take years through this process. And so I also said it wasn't going to take 2 weeks or a weekend thing. So, um, I don't know what else more to say about that than to you need something else to fill your addiction besides fentanyl. And again, this is a simplistic answer. We're on live. I'm just giving you advice that can also serve everybody else, and it's up to you to fill in the blank spaces of what I'm not saying, because what I'm not saying is the process of doing it. I'm also not an addiction specialist, so I'm not claiming to be. But that's how I'd answer it from my perspective. Other people will answer it in different ways. If you missed that part earlier, I was talking about getting it. It was when I was talking about going from being addicted. If you rip that out, you're gonna have a hole. You're gonna have a void. So you need to fill it with something else fulfilling. And you can go from being an addict of substances to being an addict of food or exercise. And I've seen it. I was in the gym business. I saw people addicted to exercise because they were coming off of another addiction. And it's technically healthier. It doesn't degrade your body as much, but then eventually you realize you're in another matrix. And this is all of us. We go from one matrix to another matrix to another matrix, and we learn in that process. Seek medical support for addiction. Seek support. Seek support, receive support, intend on support. Hey, Ra, why did you decide to stay in LA? It doesn't seem like a very healthy place. Is anywhere healthy? Is anybody on here? Do you live in a place where they don't spray chemtrails or they don't use cars that pollute the air, or pharmaceutical companies aren't trying to get the most customers as possible by making the population sick, or where there's not commercials that are promoting candy for children, beer for adults, caffeine for the workers? This exists everywhere. Everywhere. I got two cool questions. Have you heard of people transforming to light? And the other one is, what is the purpose of life? First one, have you heard of people transforming into light? I believe there's like 200 and over 250,000 documented cases of rainbow body where people have nothing but loving thoughts for 13 years and then they turn into light. There's also the concept of ascension, enlightenment, which has happened throughout history and on other planets, documented from scientists who have used human beings as a piece of technology to channel into another dimension and speak to entities there who are enlightened. So it's an interesting concept because we are light. And so we're translating light into us through eating, right? Everything we eat is stored sunlight, stored in the plants, it's stored in the animals that eat the plants, stored sunlight. Can we go in the other direction? What is the process of that? There's people that are completely dedicated to doing that and do it, and it's documented. Can we integrate some of that into our life here and now? And maybe even if that's not the direction we're going, can we integrate that and the philosophy of that into our life? Yes. And that's what the benefit of all of this is. You don't necessarily need to do it to benefit from it. It's like watching a movie. You can watch a movie about somebody robbing banks, raping people, killing people, and still be able to integrate some of the lessons of that life, even if it's completely fiction. We can integrate that in to our life, even if it's what not to do, or in this super challenging situation that this person put themselves in as a result of all of this. This is how they solve the problem. We can integrate concepts, even if it's not the direction that we're going. Be a vacuum for perspective. If there is a God, it is the one with all the perspective. Blocking out perspectives, being single minded, very little progression, very little sight in that, which is the bring me to the next question is what is the purpose of life? The purpose of life is for us to be strong individuals within a matrix of unity. So what that means is right now we are experiencing linear time on a physical space where we identify as individuals. We're like leaves on a tree. Leaves on a tree live and die. However, they are all a function of the tree. And so right now we have a perspective of a leaf and we have the individualism to gain the life experience, to have the unique thoughts and emotions of us within our created reality for the purpose of the learning and the identity of the tree, which is connected to a grander consciousness. And it keeps on cycling until we don't need physical bodies anymore because at a certain point, there's no need. Once we learn everything there is to learn on this physical dimension and see everything there is to see and experiencing everything that needs to be experienced and feel everything that we need to feel as a collection of human entities on this planet, we then ascend into the light, back into the light, one with the light, because the light separated itself into all of these different functions that we call dirt and air and the color blue and you and me. It separated itself all into all of these different aspects of itself to have all of the experiences that are possible here and now and billions of years ago and billions of years in the future. And once that collection has experienced everything, it goes back into the light. Like it actually is existing as light now. I'm speaking on a linear frame because that's how we are segmented in right now to give us perspective. We're seeing the perspective of linear time and we're able to move through physical reality. So just like we move through physical space, there's a perspective of us that is able to move through time. Like we can go from point A to point B in physical space. There's an aspect of us that can move through our memories, through our being. Not even memories. It's through our states of being to be us in different moments of time. And this is what a lot of us call God. It's that perspective of us. It's everywhere. It's omnipresent, omnipotent. everlasting, cannot be created or destroyed. What is one of the aspects of your life you currently enjoy most? That's a great question that we should all ask ourselves. Are you in a relationship with women, kids? I have a wife. Yes. For me, it's hard to accept my reality. It is painful. However, I am surrendering and I am embracing. Pain is a part of this timeline, of this reality. Suffering is a choice. And suffering is pain times resistance equals suffering. Pain is different than suffering. Pain exists. The more we resist it, the more we suffer. If we resist it zero, then we don't suffer. We just experience the pain. We're experiencing pain and we're resisting. Now we're suffering. Have you had an astral projection experience? Yes. When I was practicing, I didn't practice for very long though, but there's methods that you can do to learn to lucid dream or learn to go into other realms. Actually, I did a lot of that when I was really young. But get a book on reality transurfing or uh there's a book, I think it's called Dream Yoga. Is it up there on that bookshelf? Dream Yoga talks about stages of meditating while sleeping. So, first step is to be aware of the time between being awake and sleeping. It's called like Nidra Yoga, and then being aware while dreaming, so lucid dreaming. And then it gets even crazier than that. Then going into your dream aware and then doing rituals while you're dreaming, focusing on a meditation, focusing on symbols that unlock other realities within your dream world. Guys, this reality we're in, what is it called in technology? Like backdoors in, like, you can get into corporations with technology. Like, there's a lot of backdoors into this reality where we can slip outside of what we're meant to experience and get into some trouble if we would like. Uh, just be mindful because number one, we're like infants in these other zones. We do not have the defense mechanisms. We do not have the experience. We do not have the mentorship to navigate. And our human based mind may think things are a good idea in these other realms. And just be prepared, be mindful, make sure that you bring your greatest version of self and that you research, even, or you're just going to learn through experience. One planet already has infinite perspectives of experiences of this world, and there are billions of trillions of planets. Infinite perspective creates infinite universe, infinite inside the infinite. Why do you call yourself Rav Earth? It's simple. I was born Ronald, then I went by Ronnie most of my life. And when I ended up closing my gyms, I decided to move on to the next chapter of my life. I didn't really resonate with Ronnie anymore. So I went back to Ronald and I spelled Ronald raw underscore Nold on Instagram for some reason, RA underscore Nold. And then Ronald didn't feel right introducing myself to people. So then I asked for a spiritual name to be assigned to me. And part of that contract was to give up my birth name. So I agreed to do so. And they assigned me the name Ravi Chandar. So Ravi means essence of the sun, and Chandar means moon. And so I started introducing myself as Ravi. And I mean, Ravi Chandar was like one time I introduced myself as that, and I was like, "Okay, that doesn't feel good." So I introduced myself as Ravi, and I did that for like 6 to 8 months, and a bunch of people know me as Ravi. Like I can see people and they call me Ravi out of their mouth because that's what how they know me. And Ravi just didn't really feel good either. It just wasn't resonating. So then I was like, okay, Ronald, Ronnie, Ravi, what did they all have in common? They all had Ra in common. Ronald, Ronnie, Ravi. So that's why I call myself Ra. And why is it Ra of Earth? Well, because in my knowing, as I was saying earlier, I identify as an aspect of the light, and I'm experiencing this life as an earthling. And so it all kind of is twisted in there and tangled with light, Ra of Earth. I'm a light experiencing Earth as an earthling. I have a feeling that you will be a future famous singer. You know what's amazing is I've never felt like I can sing. However, I enjoy it. I bought like an app a few years ago. What's it called? I don't know. It's the same app. Muse. It's it's the same app that you can learn to play the piano and guitar and ukulele and sing. And I think I bought it for the ukulele, and which I have back here. And I would play ukulele while I was riding a unicycle. But I only learned basically one song on it, which is "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" by Israel. And then I would go to the singing one, and I would practice singing, and it's really interesting to me. I find extreme enjoyment out of it, but I just haven't dedicated enough time to it. Are you a millionaire, broke, or middle class? What is your best talent that we can see? The questions offer perspective into the people's framework. We do pretty well financially, and I have always in my life to the level that I envision of self. And um, that's the thing. That's the thing that you realize is you make as much money as you feel that you're worth, that you feel that you need. It's very rare that you will get paid more than you feel you deserve, or it's very rare that you get paid more than you ask for. So with money comes responsibility, comes a willingness, a responsibility. There's a saying, the bigger the problem, the bigger the paycheck. So the bigger the problems that you solve, the bigger the paycheck. Some people say, well, some people have a lot of money, they don't work. That doesn't mean they're not solving problems. You don't have to work harder. So it's different than working. I'm not saying you work harder, you get more money. In fact, it's actually the opposite. If you're one working harder, hardest, if you're the hardest working people, they're not the ones that get paid the most. However, I'm not saying that hardworking people don't get paid a lot because within your problem solving, if you are working hard within that, then you will be effective at making money because you're solving a lot of problems. So it's not synonymous. It doesn't mean work hard equals less money, but from a general standpoint, it does. The hardest working people are the ones getting paid the least. The construction workers, who are carrying, they're trying to fit as many. When I worked construction, I would try and fit as many 2 by 4s between my shoulder and my hand as possible. I forget what it was, like 12 or 14 or something, walking upstairs onto the roof, not with 2 by 4s, of course, but onto, installing insulation. That that was very hard work, but it's not solving a problem that's very valuable. If you're a laborer, you're solving the problem of the contractor that needs a hole dug. It's not a very big problem to dig a hole, even though it could be very hard if you've dug a hole in the summertime. There's no wind if you're inside the hole digging a hole. There's no wind. And digging holes is not easy. Sometimes it's clay because the houses are in Michigan where I grew up. It's all swampy. So houses are, before you put the house, you put super hard clay. It's like as hard as concrete, and you have to dig down. You have to break up the dirt, and it takes you literally 2 hours to dig a post hole, one post hole to put a deck 3 feet down. But digging, like solving the problem of somebody else not wanting to dig a hole, so you're like, "I'm gonna dig the hole," that's not a big problem. So, find big problems to solve. Figure out how to solve them effectively, and you will be paid. And it's not necessarily that you chase the money. If you serve problems, you serve the people with problems, money will find you. People will seek you out to solve their problems. So you don't necessarily even need to sell, even though selling is going to be a part of this whole thing. Selling's an interesting problem solving skill. You have somebody in front of you who has a problem, but they don't want to spend money. Now it's your job to solve that problem. How do I help this person with their problem and help them recognize that them paying for it, they win by them giving me $100, I give them $1,000 of value. That's the process of sales. The process of sales is not manipulating somebody to give you money. It's helping them recognize that you have something more valuable than those green pieces of paper that they have. However, I might have a lot of it. So it's not as valuable to me because I make it, I designed it, or I can make copies of it easily. So those green pieces of paper are more valuable to me than the thing I'm willing to trade. It's essentially a trade. They trade something that's more valuable to me, and I give them something that's more valuable to them. That's the process of money. All right, y'all. This is kind of like a test. I'm going to be having a I am going to be having a community where I'm going to be hosting these more specific topics. I actually pulled up, there's a book I wanted to digest, but I just want to do this test before I do that. And in that community, we're going to be having these discussions once a week. And yeah, I'll host them live, and then the recordings will be in the community and maybe eventually put out on a podcast. But look out for the community because we're going to do some cool, fun, amazing things inside of it. Challenges. You'll learn about the studies that I have looked into that allow me to think a certain way. Because once you're exposed to studies, even if Western science, is very superficial, you can still use that superficiality to open your perspective to then go into the East. It essentially validates the East or the ancients on what they do. It allows you to open the door and realize that maybe what they're doing is correct, even if they don't have the science to go down 7 levels. But if Western science has validated level one, then it allows you to jump and trust and experience level seven. Western science is very superficial, that it's hard to measure things that are non physical, right? We need a physical machine to measure something. Um, And by physical, I don't like, even the stuff that's in the air is still physical, right? Energy that you can feel is still physical. I'm talking about like the dreaming thing, opening up portals, traveling interdimensionally. That stuff is a little bit more difficult to measure unless you have experience. But we can't take our machines into these places. like the speed of light, for instance. No, I don't want to get into that. Um, but time, linear time, for instance, most of our science is all based on cause and effect. But then at the same time, there's the concept that is well known, well studied, well documented about linear time not existing linearly, and that everything exists now. Everything that has happened, everything that will happen exists now. Can we get access to that? And there's documentation of people that can look into the future with devices. They can see stars that are, where they were. It's a different spectrum that what we are looking at, but you can measure the frequency of, if you're looking at a star, let's say 10 billion miles away, you can see that the frequency coming from that star is strongest where it currently is. And then going back in time, you can see that that signal gets weaker, 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 weaker. And you can see that that same signal gets weaker, 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 weaker as it goes into the future. So you can see these fields emanating from all over the universe instantaneously. It doesn't even take time to get from there to here. Even if it's 10 million light years away, you can see, you can measure is the right word. You can measure the future and the past of something like a star. Interesting. Our hearts also have this sensation. I'll pull up a few studies where you can see that our heart is triggered before an event, outstanding event happens. A random picture generator generating pictures of like horror and joy and frustration and pain and happiness and calmness. And if there's these pictures that are coming, we can actually sense the types of pictures that are coming before the machine even picks which one is going to come up. And this is all, like I said, it's superficially proven in Western science. And so, what do we do with that information? If we are a being that senses and is more than this linear cause and effect physical reality, what does that mean? Is there ways for us to tune our instrument within that paradigm that impacts how we live our life, the, the impact that we have within this physical reality? Is it a waste of time trying to become financially rich? That being a goal. It's like saying, is it a waste of time playing video games? Or is it a waste of time playing sports? Or is it a waste of time working on your car? It's only a waste of time if you're not integrating the lessons into yourself and into the people that you are influencing and into your children. Everything is about integration. Take in, integrate, pass on, teach, recycle, go through the cycle again, learn everything, do everything at an ascended level. So, a lot of us, when we're going through the different aspects of life, can only focus on one thing at a time in the beginning. So, we're like, all right, I'm going to get as physical fit as possible. I'm going to get as smart as possible. I'm going to get as rich as possible. I'm going to date as much people as possible. I'm going to learn about this specific thing. I'm going to travel the world and that's going to be my focus. And we can only focus on one thing at a time the first time we go through it, but we don't realize that the second time we go through it, we can focus on our physical health and do well in our career and have a functioning relationship. And then we move into some other focuses. And the more cycles through this we go in our life, the better we get at juggling multiple things. It's just like learning how to walk. Like it was really difficult to maneuver one leg, then the other leg, but then we could do it. And then we could talk at the same time we were walking. And then we can eat at the same time we were walking. And then we can start listening to podcasts and walking our dog and eating and can't really drive while doing all that, but you get the point. We get to be able to do more things with more experience. So, this talk about focus if you're just purely focused on money, you are establishing your relationship to it. And you may, like the pendulum swings, you may come away from that and decide you need to go learn about sitting underneath waterfalls and meditating and being free and going with the flow. You might need to develop that aspect of yourself. And then the pendulum comes back, but you take some of that with you this time. And you take some of the money with you. And then you're this new version of yourself that's going through the same experiences again, but you're ascended. You have more perspective of your own self, and you gain more and more clarity until you're the Godhead. You learn eventually to perceive from others. You perceive all the aspects of yourself, you harmonize with it, you gain power within yourself, then you perceive from the viewpoints of other people, right? Maybe you're the boss when you're 20 years old and you treat everybody like crap, like they're your slaves, like I did in my early 20s when I owned my own business. And then you realize, like, the next time I do this, it's not going to be like that. I'm going to collaborate with people and help them make money in a way that allows them to make more money than me. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm involved in a business where I bring on partners and they have the same ability as me to create and achieve financial success. They even have better abilities, better assets than I had, because they also have me helping them. And they've got the increase in evolution that has been provided over the last 5 years since I've started doing what I do. And that's the magic of MLM. You can say all the bad stuff about it. You can say bad stuff about everything. Everything has negatives and positives. Nothing's perfect. I'm going to go on this. Nothing's perfect, meaning that there's not just all goodness that exists within anything. 78 degrees is a almost perfect temperature. uh, you know but what if you're a hockey player? What if you love winter sports? 78 degrees is way too hot. So that's a bad example, but there's always going to be something about everything that isn't completely there for you, especially when it comes to careers. Hello, maybe you can give a good advice. I'm really missing my high school period. I'm missing my high school period. I think period of time. One day cannot pass to not think about my memories, friends, great memories I made. It's really sad. Okay. So I can answer this in a few different ways. So number one is to like Tommy, help Tommy experience his high school better, right? Like, how do we give him more of that rush? And an easy way to do this, if you guys are longing to remember, so that word remember, to become one with again, right? To dismember means to separate. To remember means to become one with again. So if you would like to become one with again your realities that you have once traveled through, number one, realize that they still exist. They're existing right now. You in high school is existing now. It's connecting you to that reality. That's the question. How do we do that? Vibration, sound is a very easy way to do that. Listen to the music of the time, and you can instantaneously become that energy. Uh, I'll find the study where they took men and they told them, or they put them in a environment where it was 20 years ago, and they told one group to, this is an environment where everything's like it was 20 years ago. The 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 wallpaper's 20 years old, the stuff on the TV's 20 years old, the TV's 20 years old, the music's 20 years old. And then they told the other group that, try your best to live as if it's 20 years ago. Like, be 20 years ago. And the interesting thing is both study groups gained tremendous amount of youth as a result of this practice. I think it was like extremely short amount of time too. I don't want to say, oh no, I think it was like 5 days they lived like this. And they both got younger, but the group that lived as if got more younger. But just playing music it'll bring you back there, and then the memories come up and you can enjoy them for a little bit. So that's number 1. And enjoy it. If that's something that you like to do, do it. The question is now, can you perceive value in your current reality like you did back then? Like, what is the difference? What is the difference in your happiness? Joe Dispenza, you are the placebo. Yeah. Like, our goal is to increase our placebo effect, increase our ability to impact reality. But that's a different subject. When you have a group, the timing is fast. Yes. When you have a group, the outcome of intention happens quick, instantaneous. You are not offering readings, are you? No, everybody. There's a scam. There's constantly scammers scamming all my followers. All right. They pretend to be me. They grab a few posts. I think this person only has like 18 posts and they're currently scamming people pretending to be me. There's like 100 people that have reported this account. It's Raw of Earth 001, I believe, is the current one. They'll continue doing this with everyone. I think that they just prey on people like my followers because it's really easy to, get them to give them something. He's offering readings. He or she or whatever is offering them readings. Um, and if I contacted you offering a reading for $30, that would be pretty cool. So people are quick to say yes. Especially since I've never done that before. However, I should start doing it because everyone's saying yes. I know people personally that have gotten scammed. People that I know personally, not Instagram relationships, but like personal relationships have got scammed by these people. Gave them $100 because they were supporting me. Do you want to become an actor like Aquaman? I did one time in my life, but I'm 41 now, and I got into acting in my 20s, and I realized that I don't like being told what to do. Lose 10 pounds and I'll talk to you. Okay. In 2 weeks. Okay. All right. 2 weeks later, I lost 10 pounds. Now what? Lose 10 more. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go start my own gym where I can tell people that as opposed to me being told that. And I can show people how. So acting seemed very for me, it had like prostitution energy. But that's just because it didn't resonate with me. A lot of people have good energy with being told what to do and then being granted an ability to play a character and get into that role. Um, how can you keep at it within a world of constant corruption? Have you guys been in nature recently? How can you keep at it within a world of constant corruption? Have you been into nature recently? You will see big, tall trees stealing all the sunlight from the weaker shrubs. You will see animals raping each other and eating each other and deceiving each other. You will see animals hiding. You will see animals taking the babies of other animals. You will see animals putting babies into the nests of other animals. It is natural for corruption, for collusion, for conspiracies, for those to conspire against others. This is natural. We do not need people pointing fingers at what is natural. Oh, that shouldn't be. That shouldn't be. That's wrong. No, it's natural. It's happening. It is happening. Are we able to exist within this in a way that we have our own identity and we evolve and integrate within this game that none of us signed up for? just like the rabbit didn't sign up to get eaten by the cheetah. However, they still exist. Their life still has a purpose. They learn, they laugh, they mate, they integrate. It's all a part of it. With that, I'm going to end because that's a heavy one. To accept that is heavy. And it's something I contemplate on. It's a question, it's a fair question, but it's really heavy to take the perspective of it is perfect. This is how it is meant to be. And for me, there is no other perspective because if it wasn't meant to be, it wouldn't be. Take care, everyone. No, I'm not condoning it, but I'm also not pointing my finger at it. And I don't have the answer. So solve the problem. Be the one who solves the problem. Don't pass it on to somebody else.